2 days after the final declaration by the National Returning Officer, GHOne announcing John Dramani Mahama as president-elect, an election characterized by tension and relatively low voter turnout. What does this election mean to you? Welcome to the show. My name is Mohammed. It's a packed show. You don't want to miss any part of it. So far, 107 people have been arrested. What should these political parties be telling their supporters? We'll talk about all the security implications and what does this mean for the region in general. Let's start off our show with our quote of the day. Our quote of the day is from Lewis Carroll, who says, "One of the deep secrets of life is that all that is really worth the doing is what we do for others." Yeah. So we practically live for others. That's according to Lewis Carroll. Let's now bring you our word of the day.
Today's word of the day is sapient. S-A-P-I-E-N-T. It's an adjective. Now it means having great intelligence and wisdom. Let's use an example. It's the hope of many Ghanaians that a sapient president will be elected on 7th December. Sapient.
Having intelligence and wisdom. Those of you who say, "I am sapiosexual." Well, that's your word of the day. Everybody here on the show, we help you improve your English language writing and speaking. Let me pump you up. See, I know. Some of you, Mufufu Academ. Some of you too, you're in the jubilant mood. So let me pump you up for the day with our video of the day. It's not president for their party, it's president for the entire nation. And so we in the media will be here to scrutinize policies and call for accountability. Furthermore, transparency. Today on the show, we'll talk about all the security implications of whatever is going on post-election, why some people are besieging various state institutions. We saw it in a different era. We saw it in 2016. We condemned it. We've seen it again in 2024. Should this continue? What should be the approach? We'll talk about it. And then we'll sit with the aide to now President-elect John Dramani Mahama. Joyce Bawa is our guest today later on, and then more conversations on cocoa. So you know that this show is packed today. You don't want to miss any part of it. Professor Kwesi is the security consultant, and he is in the studio. I know, Tad, we will talk everything security. Prof, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Well,
it's been long days for us here.
Yeah. Well, it's been tiring, but it's been worthwhile. I think democracy needs individuals, organizations that are driven by the desire to ensure that it's inclusive, transparent, accountable, and even more importantly, that it delivers on its promises. So I think it's been worthwhile.
It's been worthwhile.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's now time for Hard Talk. Welcome back to the show. It's now time for Hard Talk. I mentioned earlier, Professor Kwesi is here as my guest this morning. He's a security consultant. Prof, you said by and large, in the spirit of democracy, everything has been okay. But we're witnessing a lot of tension. We're witnessing a lot of chaos. We're witnessing needless deaths, besieging of state installations. Were you surprised by all of this?
No, far from it.
Really?
Violence is a currency in Ghanaian politics. And the more violent you are, whether in terms of your words or the actual perpetration of violent acts, if your party wins an election, then it becomes a very profitable investment. You know, you get given a job. So in that sense, I knew it would happen. I'm neither also surprised by the scale of it. It is the failure of our security assessments that is creating the impression that this is new, and the unwillingness or otherwise of those who are in charge of our security to crack the whip that is dragging this. But otherwise, I mean, these are criminal actions. They need to be responded to.
But Prof, in 2016, we spoke about this. A lot of looting, a lot of tension, a lot of things that was very un-Ghanaian for us. And we said we didn't want to see it again. The people that condemned it, the people who are the receiving end, are now dishing it out to others. Is it that we never learn as a country?
Learning is not a strong point for this country. But let me go back to a word that you use that I think it's interesting. The un-Ghanaianness of indiscipline.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Actually, I would say it's very Ghanaian.
Really?
No, look at this country. Road traffic regulations, probably one of the highest road traffic deaths and injuries anywhere in this world. Listen to our language: abusive, intimidating, disrespectful, corrupt. So corrupt that corruption is now the glue that binds this country together. So the notion of Ghanaianness as hospitable, honest, loving, supportive, probably previously gentle, is gone. Pastors are lying through their teeth, prophesying as to who will be president, and when they fail, and when they fail, they come with funny excuses. People promising us they will commit suicide if this party wins. You know, we've elevated stupidity and indiscipline to be a hallmark that we respect and adore. Students want to bribe their lecturers. They want to give their dissertations to contractors to write for them. And these are senior people in public life. You know, so the notion of Ghanaianness as what we thought we were is gone. So those who have taken up weaponry to misbehave are actually following what is the norm in Ghanaian society. If we go back a year and a half, 2 years, with the exception of Mr. Mahama himself and Dr. Baumia, who did not use language that was intimidating, disrespectful, abusive, almost all party officials used phraseology that glorified violence and that sent a clear signal that any means necessary to win is acceptable. What they forgot was that when you pump this narrative into people's minds, you've also got to come back and deconstruct it.
Sure.
Otherwise, irrespective of the outcome, the boss has said it and we will continue. What is happening, and I've called it, you know, the president has called it criminal enterprise, which I think is a very fascinating and apt description. Because it is not the supporters of one party who are doing this. Oh, you think so? Oh, yeah, no doubt. These are opportunistic partnerships. But what did ordinary people gain in the last 8 years? If I can strike a blow against the state and go away, I will do it. And therein lies the need to crack the whip very quickly. Otherwise, from the 10th of January, it's going to get considerably worse.
Really?
Much worse. This is not rocket science. The Vigilante Act, Act 999, was not a particularly well thought through act. Those who had used violence and instigated violence to get into power then decide that, well, we are now in power, so violence as a tool to get political power and as a currency should not happen again. That was naive politics and naive calculus. Because when your supporters seized toilets, lorry parks, government offices, hospitals, you know, and looted. I mean, and I think there is a video trending of the then MPP chairman, I think Mr. Blay or something.
Incredibly, yes.
Yeah, and I think probably it would be good to play it. You know, when senior political operatives interpret violence and its use as appropriate in their quest for power, it sends a very dangerous signal. You know, so what is happening now has happened over and over and over again. But what I'm surprised about is that, you see, when people say the president-elect should call his supporters to order, yeah, that is all he can do, and that is all that he has done. The instruments of authority and decision-making and the responsibility to ensure we are safe still lies with the incumbent government. And they cannot and must not shelve that responsibility, because it's going to be 3 very long weeks before the night or the dawn
of January 7th.
Of January 7th. Yes.
We've seen, I ask about un-Ghanaianness because hitherto, yes, we see these political parties go at each other, but to touch an EC office, even when the ballot boxes are still in there, the reprisals towards the Electoral Commission, is it the delay in the collation of results that we're seeing, the ripple effect, or the seeming political shift?
No, Lily, this goes way beyond the EC, the Ghana Gas Company. I think they wanted to attack it. I think the police officer of Wenchi has been hurt badly, his car destroyed. This is an attack against the state.
Okay.
This goes way beyond politics. This is channeled fury and criminality that the state of Ghana must clamp down, and clamp down decisively. I think you mentioned that 107 arrests have been made.
Yes.
You know, there's this project called, I think, the Adelphi project. I think we have about 22,000 CCTV cameras all over Ghana. So national security has all the pictures. So I am surprised only 107 people have been arrested. We need to combine the forces of the Ghana Police Service, National Security, with the cameras from the Adelphi project, and then the judiciary, and to double quick punish people, to serve as a deterrent after President Mahama has lifted the sword of state, that he will clamp down even more against people who misbehave. So I think the state itself, the Ghanaian state, is failing itself and people by playing this game, this blame game. I'm hoping that when incoming President Mahama and I think outgoing President Akufo-Addo meet today to start the transition, process, both of them with one voice will say no. This will not be accepted. It is unacceptable, and we will see the law enforcement agencies doing what needs to be done. But Lily, the Ghana Armed Forces has also issued a statement.
Yes.
Let me try to explain what that statement means.
Okay.
When you strike a blow against the state and you threaten the existence of the state, it is not the police that is used to repel that threat. It is the army. And the army does not negotiate. So I think the warning is clear. I know post Ashaman and Ejura and Wa and Senyabreku, the army would want to walk a very thin line and not use, although they've promised to use lethal force when you attack them. I think they will still try, except they are provoked very much. So those who want to try it, please feel free and try. Not true, because you see, immediately we send a signal that we are incapable. Who wants to bring his money to Mr. Mohammed's administration?
Nobody.
When they are not sick. Money is sensitive. Money responds to situations where it's stable, predictable, and functional. So those who think they can steal an air conditioner, take some chair or laptop or computer, or out of frustration want to burn a building, you go to prison. And I can assure you, Lily, if national security does not use those 22,000 CCTV cameras, then we are in trouble. And they should be hauling people before the courts latest by Friday.
Some have also said that this is power shift in our security apparatus. Is that what is evident now?
oh, but the shift will happen. I mean, the president has probably, about 5,000 to 10,000 jobs to give away? The shift will happen. But it is unacceptably incompetent when the shift has not taken place to decide you will not perform. No. There are no lacunae in government business. So, yes, it is routine that certain decisions are made, and some people will naturally lose their job, others will go to prison. I'll come to that. But until you have been changed, you've got to deliver.
Sure.
Otherwise, you are putting even yourself into more trouble. And the notion that I may be changed and therefore I will not work. I mean, that is not only incompetent but criminal, because you are by refusing to perform your duties and responsibilities, you are putting people's lives at risk. Yeah. So there's absolutely no excuse why people should not.
Has the outgoing government become powerless in this situation?
It seems so, but it ought not be. No, I mean, the defense minister is in office.
Sure.
He was one of the lucky few to have won his seat. The interior minister,
even though
in office.
he's going.
Oh yeah, sure. But he's still the defense minister. The interior minister is still the interior minister. Mr. Kandapa is still the national security minister. The National Security Council is still in place. So all the security institutions are in place. They are still functioning. Their heads have not been changed. So there is absolutely no excuse to allow what is happening to happen. But I'm looking forward to President-elect Mahama and outgoing President Akufo-Addo meeting today, and after the conversations around the transition, with one voice, condemn what is happening and instruct the security forces to do what is necessary.
We also heard of threats on some government officials. Should these things not cease by now? I mean, the law is the law. The law will take its course. President Mahama, now President-elect, has stated that, well, we will set up oral operation, recover all loot, right? We'll set up functioning institutions to deal with acts of corruption. If there is supposed perception of corruption, why do people, the nationals in themselves, go after government officials? Why are you threatening government officials? Why not allow state institutions to work?
Emotional hurt sometimes makes us unreasonable in our actions.
Right.
So quite a number of these people who are threatening government officials, which is absolutely not acceptable and deplorable, are people who think they've been hurt and treated in a particular way. And I think there are lots of people, Lily, who have been deliberately targeted, their careers destroyed, businesses hit. So there's a lot of pain out there. But I think that pain is best assuaged through legal processes and institutional processes. I think people are reluctant to wait because institutions have been hollowed out, that we do not trust institutions, and people do not believe they will get justice from our institutions. And that is very dangerous. And therein lies the hope in the word reset. But we've heard these nice words before. In 2000, we heard about positive change. The change certainly did not trickle down to ordinary people. And we've heard other highfalutin slogans before also. So I think what we are seeing is a reflection of the frustrations that people have had for a long time. The sense that their rights have been trampled upon and abused, and therefore this is the time to strike back. All that we can say is that hope is probably one of the best weapons that we have, that those that we have invested our hope in to govern will do what is right. And I think President-elect Mahama and his advisors can already begin to feel the weight of responsibilities that Ghanaians have placed on them. I listened to him this morning. I think his church elders came to congratulate him.
Yeah.
And he was talking about that. Yes, he had hoped that he will win, but not this margin. We've almost turned Mr. Mahama overnight into a powerful emperor. And therein lies, and I think your choice of word this morning, sapient, intelligent, and wise, is very apt.
Okay.
Because now he has the power to do whatever he wants. Actually, we can tell the NPP members of Parliament, why don't you go home and drink tea? We will still pay you. And the business of government will go.
We'll continue anyway.
Yes. And they realize the potential danger and threat to democracy.
Right.
You know, so sapient is a word that I hope you will be throwing around in this studio more often. And I think when Ms. Mukhtari comes in, I think you would need to reassure us that, you know, sapient will be a word that a lot of their actions will revolve around. Okay, so history is beckoning, and Mr. Mahama will be looked up to deliver the expectations and the hopes of people. Because I remember clearly in 2016, a day or two before the elections, and President Kufuor's last campaign message, I think he spoke in Twi, appealing to Ghanaians to trust him and to vote for him, that he's a successful man. I think was the phrase. And I think were we to go out there and ask whether that trust that we reposed in him and the administration have been fulfilled, I think the electoral results are indicative of people's evaluation of that administration.
Now let's evaluate President Kufuor's presidency.
Yeah.
Prior to him coming, the Third World War that he seemingly went into, won that war. He coming into office, 8-year span. What would be your thoughts about President Kufuor in terms of being handling the security apparatus of the state?
I think on a scale of 1 to 10, in which 10 is the highest mark, I think about 2.5. Yeah.
Is that not very uncharitable?
Well, if you ask my students, they will actually tell you it's very charitable.
Really? Why would you say so?
Why wouldn't I say so? Now, if you look at what has happened in the last 2-3 days, it ought not to have happened. We have the Vigilante Act, Act 999. I mean, we have a panoply of rules and regulations and laws that should not let what has happened happen. So, how come we haven't had vigilantism since, is it 2020 or 2021? No, since 2017, thereabout. It's because it's the same party that has been in power.
Exactly.
So I think it's a disastrous failure of our capacity to do the intelligence assessment, to to know that immediately there's a shift. And these are assessments that you do prior to an event, so that you have different options for response.
Yeah.
And one of the options for response was to say, look, were the government to change, how will people react? Because when governments have behaved in ways that people feel they've lost the joy of living, then the assessments are that those governments will be abused, sometimes physically attacked, and it happens all over the world. I remember, I think in 2020 or 2021, I had just done a major assessment of the April 19th bombings in Sri Lanka for the UN. And around that time, if you remember, there was a lot of trade union agitations in Ghana, and people were expressing surprise on the government side. And I said, no, but if you do your work well and you do the assessments well, this shouldn't come as a surprise. A government minister called me, threatening me, yeah, I'll sack you, do you know who I am? And
sack you?
Yeah. I mean, if you are I think that should be one conversation altogether about the threats and intimidation the last 8 years and what I have lost. But that's a conversation for another day.
I'm sure viewers would want to know, but you complete your sentence, then I'll ask you about it. Not just on you, but on people in general.
But a surprise to me during that conversation was this minister saying, oh, do you want this place to become like Sri Lanka? So there was an awareness around 21, 22 that things were not going well. So I jokingly told them, look, actually, I've just done a major assessment as to why the terrorist bombings happened and the riots happened for the United Nations about Sri Lanka. So if you like, I can send you the report. But I also realized that, look, it was a waste of my time sending the report to anybody. So my driver, every time we reached that particular spot on the way to Takrady, he said, hey, this is where the man called and threatened you. But we started by talking about democracy and the need to work to sustain it. I mean, for me, there was no problem at all in terms of continuing to write and to speak. So the 2.5%, I think, is a very generous mark, because we saw the way Dre happened, we saw the way Sherman happened, Ayawaso West Wagon was the epitome of how security governance had collapsed in this country. Because we saw these people come out, brutalize Ghanaians, a commission of inquiry established, and all the security chiefs said, we don't know where these people came from. There's a Parliamentary Committee on Defense and Interior. We have the Public Accounts Committee. We have the Finance Committee. We have the Attorney General's Office. All these committees are they are what we call the committees having the power of the purse. They fund these institutions. So where did these guys get their monies from? Where did they get their weapons from? The vehicles, their clothing. Okay? And for a powerful committee chaired by Emil Short, with members of Professor Henrietta Mensah Bonsu, now a Supreme Court judge, and then Kwesi Achampo, a former IGP. The government just rubbished the report. Okay, so it's key that even in situations where there ought to have been some openness, some acceptance of failure problem, it was not done. But nevertheless, Ghana is a resilient country. Our communities are strong. Our communities are hardworking. And I think we will be able to go beyond this temporary tensions and fights and continue to be a strong, resilient country.
Is our democracy under siege?
No.
It's not?
No. It's because we've wasted time in responding.
Okay.
You know, when you talk to the armed forces, they'll always tell you, allow us, give us the orders, and we will get it done. So I can sense the frustration that, you know, their hands are tied behind them, and then they've been sent in to fight. And it's the same story with the Galamsey. You know, so the 2.5, Lily, if you push me, probably I might bring it down. No. Look at the deliberate destruction of our water bodies and our lands. We are the only country that hasn't gone to war, but out of greed and crass stupidity have destroyed our water bodies. You know, so
at what point did we lose the war on Galamsey?
I think it will be different. I can't sitting here point to a particular time period. I think the experts like Steve Mantiao and Samuel Bekwe might be able to point out. But if you look at the explosion in the licensing regime in the last 3 years, 4 years, probably the last 8 years or so, yeah. Because when does
it then suggest that all the efforts do not yield any results by this government?
All the efforts were not sincere.
Okay.
Absolutely not sincere.
How so?
You know, when you come to my class, my role as a teacher and as a leader is to impact or to impart knowledge. If I fail to do that, there are no excuses.
Right.
We have had multiple operations, and the military people will tell you that had we been given free hands, we would have dealt with this. We would have dealt with this and quashed this once and for all. No, but there's never really been the sincerity around the fight against this massive destruction of our water bodies. And here it's not only about the government, to be fair. The legislative instrument that allowed people to go into the water bodies was supported also by the other side. You know, so it was a joint decision. You know, so Mr. Mohammed has also some hard decisions to make. Their manifesto promises around Galamsey seems very well thought out. Dr. Orbin knows what he's talking about very clearly. But I think we need, as civil society, you know, to continue to encourage them, to criticize them, to come with some other options, you know, so that hopefully we can turn what is increasingly staring at us that threatens our very existence.
You talked a while ago about acts of threats and intimidation.
Yeah.
Were you threatened? You mentioned that the minister. Beyond him.
Oh, consistent. I mean, nothing for me. It became a routine part of my work. You know, from the major baseline survey about small arms in this country that we did, to even have the conversation. I mean, there was never any time I appeared on radio or television that I didn't get some threatening call. But I don't want to make a conversation. I think today is about Ghana. But I will show you letters, you know, my wages were reduced, all sorts of things. But I will not leave. This is my country. I have a right to be here. I have a right to speak, and I have a right to write.
Was it something you were doing against government, you think?
No. You think this conversation is against government?
No, not at all.
So, but when people are extremely sensitive, and democracies require that, particularly for those of us who have been educated with the taxpayers' money, from the fisherfolk, from the farmers, from the street sweepers, from the woman roasting coffee broke man, that we bring that knowledge and that elitist training back into society to contribute to. But we have a political class across this continent that thinks that we should all be part of the ruling, governing, looting class. That is not everybody who thinks that way. Some of us must be on the other side to be able to keep check on those who govern, and I think it's a legitimate thing to do. No. I'm a relatively cautious person, but I also not be pushed around. So if something happens, I will speak about it.
In light of what you're talking about, some analysts say President Akufo-Addo ran a seemingly authoritarian regime. Would you agree?
Well, certainly the space for civil society engagement over time became narrower and narrower and narrower.
What should President Mohammed do when he comes into office, his first 1 year?
Well, he's giving himself 120 days. So probably we should...
Especially for the security apparatus.
Yeah.
What should be his focus?
Well, when you say the security, then you are talking about the institutions.
And the entire security of the nation.
Yeah. So let's start with the entirety of the nation. And I want to locate this conversation within this 120 days social, is a contract?
Yes.
Yeah. In that social contract, he promises to make some inquiries into some, projects and contracting issues. And I think there's a tall list of some of the institutions and contracts that he would want to look into. Security is about securing jobs, housing, health, education. So President Mahama, in the first 120 days, must begin the process of saying everyone who was part of these companies, because we need to do a thorough investigation based on the rule of law. Kindly hand over your passport to National Security so that until you are cleared, then you can go back for your passport and travel. Because we need to retrieve our monies, our properties, and those who need to go to jail must go to jail. That will dampen the general sense of frustration, anger, the sense that we have lost out in the last 8 years. And part of the violence that we are seeing and the unacceptable violence and attacks against state property and individuals stems from this notion that some people have used their positions to acquire wealth inappropriately. Then comes the institutional process of rebuilding, of appointing people. Several months ago, Imani Ghana and myself and a few others, I can't talk about this because the case is still at the Supreme Court to give us an interpretation of the president's powers in terms of chopping off the heads of all security institutions upon the coming to power of a new president. I know President-elect John Mahama does not agree with the position that we took. That if I'm a president and I cannot appoint my own security chief, then what kind of president am I? So he will do that. The Ghana Armed Forces has been fairly retooled over time. And I think he will continue. Housing is a big problem. Issues around further training, education has been going on. He will need to speed it up. But more importantly, is to give what we call the Fusion Center and other analytical aspects of the statutory security agencies the free hands to do the assessments.
Why?
In the last 5-6 years, we've allowed our partners to determine what the security threat is. So they've been telling us, the terrorists are coming from the north, they are coming. But the problem is within. What is happening here is not done by some terrorists from Al-Qaeda or Islamic State. So I think Mr. Mahama would need to clamp down on this crossing of our legs and everybody telling us what our security, problems are. But he also needs to rebuild the intelligence.
Why?
Because in the last 6 to 9 months, the intelligence services have been used basically to run, pools as to whether what people think about government and whether they will win or not.
Is it their mandate?
No.
Some have argued that, the intelligence agencies like the NIB do a lot of these researches, so it's nothing new.
For what purpose? Because if they had listened to the NIB, because they were using the Kobo Collect, so they knew specifically the time and place where Lily said, you are doing a great job and we will vote for you. But people told the National Intelligence Bureau guys doing the work the truth. And when the truth came to headquarters and they didn't like it, they told the personnel, go back until you get us what we want. That is not what you use your National Intelligence Services for. So
should we relook at the whole idea of the BNI now NIB? Should we have a critical relook at it? Because very often it is job for the boys that we see across the board, both the NDC and the NPP.
See, I've always had this notion that jobs for the boys simply threatens the regime in power that does that. That sees its security institutions as a place to dump its political supporters.
Right.
Because one of the few places that you don't want to tinker with relates to those who will protect you when you are in danger.
True.
Okay. Now when I travel around this country, and I can tell a lot of our politicians don't know this country, except when they are doing a little campaign, I've met people at barriers who cannot read.
That is the truth on the ground.
I've met people who have stopped my official vehicle with a big crest on it, and they are still demanding bribes. And I asked the guy, please, have you looked at both the license plate and the crest? It doesn't mean anything to you. Now, when you reduce your security institutions to that level, then you are threatening not only yourself and your government, but also the state as a whole. So I hope that there will be some gathering of people, experienced people, to think through, together with some of the serving people, to think through the new directions for rebuilding these institutions, making them more efficient, and also responding to the ever-changing threats.
Why?
Because what is happening now, I mean, doesn't look too good in terms of how the international community is looking at us. We had a very successful Saturday, all the way until Sunday. Dr. Bawa gave this very mature, statesmanly concession. President-elect Mohammed responded in a very, positive manner. President Akufo-Addo called President-elect. So the processes were going on as smoothly as mature democracies do. But somebody dropped the ball on the intelligence assessments as to how supporters from both sides would behave. So,
did the intelligence gathering then fail us?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Because, if you ask Albert Yelyang of WANEP,
yeah.
You ask Emmanuel Bombande. For those of us who have followed political violence in this country and vigilantism and transitional politics, or Professor Jampo, or Alidu, this is not a surprise. So for us to sit and allow it to happen, and for lives to be lost and properties burnt, only that in this country nobody's ever sacked, for failures. But this is a great disaster for us.
Should this be a test case?
For who? For Mohammed?
Yes.
Well, I think he's indicated that people should stop, but he's also thrown the ball back at the government. That they are still holding the instruments of power, so they should use it. My assessment from his statement so far, and I think it's giving him some warning also of what can happen when he takes over power, is that he and his team will be prepared. They must be prepared necessarily to clamp down where people to take the law into their own hands.
Now let's look at the election. You talked about the election. Were you particularly surprised about the outcome?
No.
Why?
Two things. Already by 2020, even before the 2020 elections, the anger was palpable.
Right.
I did a major study together with two people titled, what is it, a conflict development analysis or something? And we traveled primarily in the 6 northern regions. And the feedback was clear. There was a sense of frustration that all these economic interventions were nothing than some fluke of some sort. Then in 2022, went back, traveled around the same 6 northern regions, did some interviews in Accra, but that was related more to the developments that could lead to the rise of extremism. How can structural problems turn people to support, radical groups? And if you look at people's access to potable water, electricity, where they got their main news from, employment, access to medical health, the distance to the medical facilities, it was an absolute disaster. So the indices were there. Okay, but people just did not want to look at it, and leaders also wanted to be told sweet stories. So those of us who said, look, I don't have an interest, I'm a retiree, but there was this reluctance to listen to alternative views. And Lily, one of the things I know also in this country is that when people within the ruling government also know that things are not going well, The monies voted for campaign, I hardly used in full. I think I was discussing with a senior member of the NDC, and he said, "Oh no, we have also been there before. I know what I'm talking about." So sometimes you vote 100 cedis for some activity, but people will use 12 because they know that irrespective of what you do, the outcome.
Are you sure they knew that this election was not going in their favor?
They knew.
Okay.
I think I have too many of my former students in senior positions who I spoke to, who were they themselves knew that they hadn't done well.
What then did they miss in this whole governance puzzle?
Arrogance. The arrogance of power. Turned previously humble, sensible, approachable people into something else. People that we teach with started from the civil society side, and power changed them. And
power is tricky.
Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And therein lies my appreciation for President-elect Mohammed's statement when he gave his inaugural response. That I think he cautioned the supporters to beware that what has happened, if you don't work well, will also happen to them.
Exactly.
And I thought it was a very apt, statement. Yeah. We don't learn. You asked about the learning.
Yes.
We don't learn. Because I remember.
Are they likely to repeat the same mistakes?
Oh, definitely. You and I will be sitting here. That is, if I can walk up your staircase. I'll be very happy to come here. We will have because look, in 2000, the NDC was such a mammoth political operation. Huge. Their rallies were just mind-blowing. They lost. And I remember the day that President Kufuor was inaugurated. Some ceremony was done in front of the Parliament House, but it was too small, so they had to cross over to the Black Star Square. And everybody left, and it was left with President Rawlings and his wife. And you could see the surprise. Mr. Kufuor came, re-energized politics, gentle giant, and then the loss. So we just don't seem to get a hang of what Ghanaians want. And this sense that, yes, we will give you power, but you've got to hold it well. You've got to treat it with the sapient behavior that we expect you. And in my old school, we had this song, "Mankind like an egg," that the human being is like an egg.
What is that?
Where do you think? I went to fast food school.
I am not surprised.
You're not surprised. That power is like an egg. You squeeze it hard, you will break it. You've got to hold it deftly. Otherwise, when it leaves your hand, hits the floor, it will also break. We are not good learners. Ghanaian politicians are the most fantastic history teachers. They are good at pointing fingers, but they are very poor history students. So the 2.5 mark is very apt and fair.
You think history will not be kind to President Akufo-Addo?
We will wait for the historians to write. We'll wait for the historians to write. But if the conversations that have taken place, even amongst his own parliamentary representatives, then we can already begin to see the writing on the wall and what the conclusions will be.
Now that you talk about parliamentarians, let's look at the current picture of over 180 in the NDC. Now, over 180.
Over 180?
Yes, in the NDC.
Okay.
And about 85, well, so we're still waiting for more constituencies. Yeah. So about 85, 86 for the NPP.
Yeah.
What does this picture paint?
Well, it paints multiple pictures. But let me go back and talk, not so much, yes, we will come to the numbers. But Lily, you know, since 1992, every parliamentary cycle loses about 30, sometimes 40% of the incumbent MPs. And particularly for the 8th Parliament, you know, there were all these problems in turnout to the political parties. So people decided that, look, I won't be run at all. Some lost their primaries. Some decided to become independent. So by the time the elections were held December 7th, probably just about 60% or a little less of the old MPs were going for re-election. If you take the normal attrition rate of about 30-40%, and we've seen some really very big names fall, then on the 7th of January, we are going to get a new parliament in which probably 65 to 70% may be first-timers.
Sure.
What that means is that the legislative process will be slow in the beginning. They would need to learn. They would need to understand that the power in the house is the mace, that when they are waxing lyrical, they cannot turn their back. You know, so we have a lot of work to do. We've been working with the Mines and Energy Committee. We've been working with Defense and Interior. And it's almost like going to the drawing board now from January 7th. So I think there's a lot of work. The 180-85, I think the one...
It's more than that, actually. About 185.
Yeah. So the 185...
no, 180-85.
Okay. So the 180 is almost about 2/3, right?
Yes.
Good. Now, the framers of the Constitution, I don't think they ever dreamt that one party would get 2/3.
Overwhelming majority.
And therein lies the need for maturity, for empathy, for sensitivity, and for alternative forms of political participation and engagement. And here, civil societies, specialized interest groups, but the fourth estate must become extremely nuanced, objective, critical actors. Lily, you know from the Afrobarometer report that law enforcement has had some difficulties with trust.
Yeah.
The judiciary has, you know, so the fourth estate, the media now will have to play probably an inordinately important role. The question then is that issues of media ethics, professionalism,
and media ownership
then comes to the fore. You know, so although we have this parliament and a powerful new president coming into office, I think those of us on the other side of the aisle must begin the process of engagement very quickly.
Okay.
But because of the sensitivities and power, as we said earlier on, you know, absolute power is a dangerous thing, potentially dangerous thing. So we need that engagement that is nuanced, factual, objective. And as I've always said, under President Mahama, I never lost sleep when I criticized him. But he didn't have absolute power then.
Exactly. Now he has absolute power.
Now he has absolute power. And I know this will get to him. I will continue to criticize him. And I'll continue to look forward to going for my walks with my dogs. And also sleeping well. And waiting for the birds to come flying by and singing for me to wake up and have my first pot of coffee. But I know some of the people around him will be very irritated. They will be angry. But that is not my problem. It's their problem.
Okay.
Because by keeping his toes to the fire, he becomes a better president.
Absolutely.
And I think he naturally is a tolerant person, listening to different views. So we look forward as civil society in continuing that engagement.
Okay.
And I think it will be good for Ghana. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming, Prof.
Thank you.
It's been such a wonderful season and a wonderful period. That's Professor Kuzini. He is a security consultant. Hard Talk continues after this breather. Please stay tuned in. Welcome back to the show. This is still GH Today here on GHOne TV. We're still continuing with Hard Talk, but let's take a quick look at what the papers are reporting this morning. So we begin this morning with the Daily Dispatch newspaper, who says, we handed power to the NDC. The figures they got in 2020 did not change in 2024. I'll ask someone about this shortly. As dropped by 40%. Let us be united. Bawumia to NPP supporters. I have agreed with the Akufo-Addo on an early transition starting today. That's according to President-elect John Dramani Mahama. The 6 record-breaking moments of 2024 elections. You want to grab a copy of the Daily Dispatch newspaper and find out. The new crusading guide says impunity after December 7 elections, call the looters to order. Media Coalition Peace Council implore IGP and the NDC. Mahama's 11-member transition team out. There's not time for blame game, Dr. Bawumia tells party folk. CBG resumes full currency services. Full foreign currency services. NPP will rise again. MP elects for Bekwai Ralph Poku Edusei declares. The Daily Searchlight, Ghana under attack by NDC, EC, police, military, Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, radio stations, civilians become the victims. Prison break at Wenchi, police commander in hospital. Julius Deborah heads Mohammed transition team. BOG restores CBG's foreign currency trading license, fully resumes all foreign currency services. NDC thugs wanted. That's by the Daily Searchlight. The Informer says blame Oforiatta for NPP defeat, and that's by the NPP party members. Tighten belts. Mahama admonishes Ghanaians. World commends Bawumia for displaying political maturity and love for peace. Let's respect decision of Ghanaians. Apenyomakin tells party. Peace Council condemns post-election violence. The Custodian newspaper, fearless, fair and reliable, says joint transition team meets today. It's not a coup d'etat. Bawumia tells Mahama to stop rampaging NDC supporters. Let's end blame game. Bawumia to NPP supporters. NPA other SOAs targeted for post-election attacks. Daily Post, Julius Deborah heads Mahama's transition team as Akufo-Addo names his transition team, which is headed by Akusia Fremosio Pari. Zango youths hail Alhaji Sinari for contributing, I'm sure they meant toward the victory of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama in the Zango communities. Fresh recruitment going on at SIC Insurance PLC. Uneasy calm at Cocoa Board as controversial promotions stir discontent. So that's what the newspapers say this morning. I want to find out from Joyce Bawa what she makes of Dr. Bawumia's statement that, well, the NPP handed over power to the NDC because the numbers for the NDC didn't change. If 2020 election numbers are anything to go by. Joyce Bawa is the aide to President-elect John Dramani Mahama. JB, good morning.
Good morning, darling. How are you?
I'm good. How have you been?
I'm very, very well. I'm very well. Very well, thank you. And good morning to everybody. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. It's been a while. You were missing in action.
I thought you guys had other friends, and so maybe I used to think that you were my friends, and then I probably thought maybe.
Well, we used to think we were friends too.
Well, I assume so, but unfortunately, somehow you all got lost in the space. But of course, it's all right. So it's time to reconnect.
You're back home. Anyway, let me start off with Dr. Bawumia's statement. He says, we handed power to the NDC. The figures they got in 2020 did not change in 2024. Eyes dropped by 40%.
Are you guys still going to be stuffing our faces and our minds with statements from Dr. Bawumia?
Why?
Let's focus on the fact that he had no message and that he lost completely. That is an utter disgrace to his campaign and to his political party. Why do we want to give credit where it's not due? I've told you guys, and I've said it many times, we are not going to allow anybody to change the narrative, okay? We went into a contest of ideas, a contest of style, a contest of leadership, a contest of credibility, a contest of trustworthiness. We beat him hands down, flat out. Let's not change the narrative. In any case, that paper is owned by a totally discredited pollster. What else will he say? In 2020, we gave them a hung parliament 4 years after we lost by nearly 1 million votes. That was in itself historic. That was in itself telling. It actually told us. It foretold the fact that the MPP had actually started to appear and represent the failure that it has become today. People knew then. They just wanted confirmation. Another 4 years, and their utter shameful performance was laid bare for all of us to see. What did they do really? What really did they do to deserve even 100 people in Parliament? Look, make no mistake, Ghanaians are very, very discerning. They've shown them the exit, the red card. Let's leave it there. And who even is taking moral lessons from Dr. Bawumia? He should advise himself first. He tried to disrupt the agenda. He tried to lower the bar on the campaign. He tried to break all the rules just because he was desperate to win. He told so many barefaced lies, even tried to ridicule his opponent's manifesto. Who does that? This is the lowest campaign we've ever had. Little wonder they failed, as people will say, poto. Let's leave it there and let him face his shame alone. Please. Mr. Mahama is the nominee by the good people of Ghana. Okay? That we garnered nearly 1.7 million votes is in itself historic. That we ought to jubilate and celebrate and allow Ghanaians to run the country as they please is actually something that all of us must accept. Please stop babysitting and pampering the MPP and Dr. Bawumia.
No,
please stop.
You think Ghanaians are?
No, not Ghanaians. I don't know. There's a certain quarter or a certain group that is trying to do that. Please, I really don't want this morning to be about a failed candidate who told us so many lies and did nothing to make my life better. Let's focus on the man.
Did you expect these numbers in the general election?
I had no doubt in my mind in the run up to the election that we literally had sold our message to the good people of Ghana. That Ghanaians had realized that they needed something different, a certain kind of leadership. We knew also that it would require a lot of work, that going into the election, the race were the underdogs, with very little money, little opportunity, and even our friends abandoned us and wouldn't invite us to their programs to actually speak to the things that actually mattered to us. But be that as it may, we took 3 different tours of this country between 2022 and 2024. The first one went through, the second one was a listening tour, the third one was the actual campaign. Make no mistake, they turned Ghana into a crime scene. They failed to deliver on their promises to the good people of Ghana. That is all that it is. And when you look at the numbers, in 2016 they won by nearly 1 million votes. In 2020 they dropped to nearly 400 and something. In 2024, add the two together, people gave all of that to GHOne Mahama in the NDC. So let's just focus.
How different was the vibe in 2020 in the run-up to the elections?
Look, I still believe that 2020 was a stolen verdict. That everything pointed to the fact that we indeed stood a very good chance of winning that election. But we live in a democracy, and the EC actually said that they had won, which is fine. But look at the reflection on Parliament, for example. We came back 4 years later in equal numbers. They've struggled ever since to find their beat. And it's largely because they had no message. They had lost credibility. They had lost favor. It is to the good Lord that we give all the glory, because you see, this is not by might. For all the terrible things that they did, for the attacks, for the machinations, for all of the efforts to utterly besmirch the image of John Mahama and to dismantle the NDC. I believe that God in his own wisdom had to actually give us this opportunity to liberate the good people of Ghana. You know, look, this is not about us. It really isn't about us. It's about those who queued out there to elect John Mahama as president. Nana Jane's nomination, how did we receive it? How did we respect it? How did we celebrate it? And we ought to bow our heads down in shame. Ghanaians know people who mean business. They appreciate people who care about them. They want leadership that also exhibits a certain sensitivity, a certain compassion. You see, the reason why the MPP lost and lost so badly is that they refuse to take responsibility. You can see, they're blaming everybody but themselves. Bawumia had no message going into the election. Absolutely no message. Prior to 2016, we had a spouse raining invectives on a man like John Mahama. If all of us even had a quarter-term president in our families, would we not respect them? Why would you allow partisanship to reduce us all to these sorts of people that we really shouldn't be? Culturally, Ghanaians are a very respectful people, okay? Ghanaians are very gracious people, and Ghanaians want to give their leaders maximum respect. And I say today that for the level of how they lowered the campaign, how they lowered the bar, just because they wanted to win and continue to run roughshod of us, God has exposed them. Please don't read any headlines from failed pollsters to us. And that narrative will not change. Mr. Mahama today has won with a commanding lead, not just of 56.55%, but entirely controls Parliament. That must tell us something.
We'll talk about Parliament shortly, but in your submission now, you talked about Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. You're one of the very few people who, I think on this platform, you were a staunch supporter of her renomination. How does it make you feel that Ghana now has the first ever female vice president?
Proud moment. Epic moment. I think this is what our mothers stood for and what they fought for. And I think that in all of it, Nana literally encapsulates all of our hopes and aspirations. Look, listen, for the first time, I think that only a progressive leader could have delivered this to the good people of Ghana. You know, why not? And I loved something she said a few days ago, in that her duty was to hold the door wide open. Nana was actually a senior prefect of Wesley Hills High School, so I call her Nana Psipe. And for some strange reason, we've literally almost been like friends ever since. Even though she's more like a mother figure, I can go to Nana Jane and talk about anything, ask her anything, say anything to her. And it's always been like that from the times when she was actually, interviewing John Mahama for programs, right up to when she became our education minister, through the first campaign, the second one. I think that somehow I draw enormous inspiration from Nana Jane's story.
How different will her office be from previous ones that have been held?
You know, I think that the office of the vice president can actually carve out a niche for itself. And so I'm hoping that she will carve out a niche that actually seeks to what? As Mr. Mahama says, to focus on the matters that actually bother on things to do with women and children, social justice, human rights issues, livelihood issues, the things that really matter to us. We all want to see her sit at the table and actually make decisions or contribute same in the ways that actually support our cause. And now we'll have Nana Jane, we have Her Excellency Lordina Mahama as soon to be Ghana's First Lady again, and many other women. Look at the campaign of the NDC. Look at the number of women, volunteers across the length and breadth of the country, our former appointees, many members of the party, the Council of Elders, many women. And I think that the best thing about this campaign, and every day I say it, we must celebrate the women of the National Democratic Congress. I believe that they did a yeoman's job. They took this campaign by storm. They walked the length and breadth of Ghana. They turned every nook and cranny. They visited every market. And you see, because these were not the major campaign teams, maybe we didn't actually pay close attention. But go to social media, visit their portals.
It was all over social media.
They were literally all over. Young, old, middle age, you name it. It was a beautiful strategy. It was a phenomenal strategy. It actually garnered very positive reviews, and you can see, and I want to hope that our volunteers will continue in the same breath, that even after we are sworn into office, we will continue to do so. You see, look, one thing we must never lose sight of is that there is another Ghana that is not Greater Accra region.
True.
That is not Greater Ashanti region. And it is those places that need us the most, like walking on the streets of Pasa in Ketekrachi and finding out that the women folk had challenges with very low voltage, that they couldn't preserve anything, that they really, those who actually were in the food business were struggling even to keep up. They lost businesses because of low voltage. If you weren't a woman and you walked even through there, you probably wouldn't relate. So there's a way that women have a certain knack for the things that society really needs. And when women are fully empowered, the family likewise is also empowered. When women are able to survive and support their businesses, the same happens to women. You know, my sister, I've said it many times that nobody should take this narrative and change it. GHOne Mahama worked very hard for this. He deserved to actually work on his legacy. He had to cement his place in the history of Ghana. More than anybody, he deserves to be celebrated. There is a raison d'etre for which God put him where he is. There must be a good reason why he lived to tell the story. And there's every reason why we must give him his salute and give him his respect. Please don't let any failed leader dictate the pace to us. When they were seizing toilets, when they attacked Nankapus on the compound at the seat of government, when they removed people from their V8s and vehicles, my kids were on their way to school. Someone had the effrontery to stop the vehicle and actually assumed that that vehicle was actually for the state. In fact, I'm still using the same vehicle. This is what they did. This is how low they sunk. We were here. It is their bad example that people want to replicate. And I am delighted that GHOne Mahama has once more shown why I trust him, why I serve him, why I believe in him, to call everybody to order. Let's celebrate, but let's remember that we need to take things very, very carefully. We want to lead this country with the confidence that Ghanaians have reposed in us.
Now that you talk about hounding people, what we're witnessing is very un-Ghanaian. Your president, now President-elect John Dramani Mahama, no, your boss, so now he's Ghana's president, has called for cool heads. In today's meeting, is this something that will take center stage?
Well, of course. Mr. Mahama naturally is a man of peace. You know he wouldn't preside over Delta forces. You know he will not encourage Delta forces. You know he will not ask people to go into a by-election and destroy people and maim people and injure people. And regrettably, once more, we know that some lives have been lost in the course of this election. We heard about Kaswa, we heard about Tolong, we heard about what happened in Damango. Well, are these not all under President Akufo-Addo's watch? They are, exactly. And so let me tell you, there is a new leadership in place.
There's a new sheriff in town.
There's definitely a new sheriff in town. There's a man who is trusted, a man who loves Ghana, a man who has no other home but Ghana. And I know that GHOne Mahama will want to leave this nation greater and stronger than he met it.
Let's go back to Professor Nana Jinapor-Kojiman. Many have questioned whether or not she would chair the economic management team. Will she?
Maybe, maybe not. Because you see, as I said, they set a very low standard and all of us decided to fall for it. So Dr. Bawumia chaired the economic management team. What difference did they make to our economy? We bought the dollar for 17 cedis from 4 cedis in 2016. We bought fuel, it was more expensive. Our pensioners got haircuts. Our economy has been ranked as junk status. The NDC left behind a B- economy that they inherited. We left the sinking fund. We left the heritage fund, which graciously funds senior high school education. How did they fare? We left the energy sector levy. We left the GET fund. How did all these funds fare? We left the Ghana infrastructure fund. How did they all fare? They have squandered all literally and still live to refuse to take responsibility for their own failings. I see a very bright future. I see a new spring in the feet of Ghanaians. I see more hope. And I'm inspired because I know that Nana certainly, genuinely doesn't need your money. That Nana will work in the interest of the good people of Ghana. I see Nana walking through the length and breadth of our hospitals, walking to the left and pray for our schools, working very hard to improve the lot of the Ghanaian people. Ghana's poor have gotten multidimensionally poorer. Even to afford 1 square meal a day is now a difficult thing for many families. Whilst a few people in Jubilee House with a very clannish mentality have fed fat on everything that is good and available and still refuse to take responsibility. Has Bawumia stopped taking his salary? No. Has he stopped occupying that beautiful office? No. Has he stopped driving the vehicles the taxpayers have graciously made available to him? The answer is no. He has lost the election. He should actually eat humble pie and apologize for misleading the good people of Ghana into thinking that he was capable of fixing the economy. John Mahama faced them so squarely and found a solution that was sustainable. He dealt with it and fixed it. That is what leaders are elected to do.
President Mahama has put together his transition team. What is the transition team looking out for?
We're looking out for just the sort of things that are happening now, where GNPC is being populated, where Ghana Gas is being populated, where many government institutions are being populated, GPHA. You see, I told you, they deconstruct you. They distort the narrative. And then they try to do even worse than they thought you were doing. So who took Ibrahim Mahama to court? And yet that was actually a special purpose vehicle. We have 3-4 different investment companies engaged in that negotiation that culminated in that agreement. They went all the way to the Supreme Court, right? Ibrahim Mahama's companies employ Ghanaians from all walks of life.
Sure.
Unemployment is currently 14.5%. So who better to give business to but to sponge on government money, taxpayer money, in the manner in which they are doing, shows brazen greed and corruption of a kind we've never witnessed before. I believe that President Akufo-Addo owes his started legacy a little bit more than he is expecting. At least he should live and live honorably. I think that his whole time in office has actually been a huge disappointment. You know, this election is a referendum on his failed government. It's a repudiation of everything that President Akufo-Addo and Bawumia stand for. It actually dictates also that people want something different. They want a modicum of respect for the Ghanaian citizen. They want a certain compassion, a certain sensitivity. And I know John Mahama. You know, he cares more than necessary. Sometimes he even takes too much responsibility. And you know, yesterday, for example, oh yes, he does. You know, when he addressed the media yesterday, for example, a colleague reached out to me, you know, JB, but he's waiting to be sworn into office. It is Akufo-Addo's responsibility. It is the IGP's responsibility.
Do you think the outgoing government has checked out?
They checked out long before now. Long ago. Have you heard anybody try to fix the economy? Seriously, tell me. Your finance minister, what do you hear him talk about? Your president, what do you hear him talk about? Your vice president campaigned for months and nobody put him to strict
He's
food.
still our vice president. He's still our president.
Nobody did. Well, they told us that if people didn't elect them into office, they didn't deserve development. So it's okay for me to say that Ghanaians have now elected a man of the people, a lady of the people who are with them, a leadership that is with them. Look, we're going to reset the economy because you see, at the bottom of all these things is what? Poverty. Is a huge public debt of over 740 billion and counting. It's about our poor. It's about a certain lack of faith even in our governance systems, in our democracy, in our judicial system, in our human rights records, in our media freedoms. There's a certain deterioration of everything that holds dear to the good people of Ghana. And I believe that in the numbers that have gone out to elect us into office, make no mistake, they were boasting and bragging that they won over 1 million votes and that they had a huge mandate to do as they please. So they cared not, they listened not, they disrespected everybody, took no criticism, and ran roughshod about all of us. We've actually shown them where power lies, that there's power in the thumb and with the people. So please.
Are you then going to repeat mistakes of old?
Let me tell you something. What were the mistakes of old? They tried to delegitimize Mahama's win in 2012 by a long drawn-out court petition. For 9 months, we were in limbo. Subsequently, we were faced with a very crippling power outages. We needed a solution. We had absolutely nothing, zero infrastructure. We were not prepared even for that. In a tight economy, where there are many competing interests, it wasn't that easy to do. When President Kufuor was faced with a similar thing, what did he do? He constructed Bui. Bui Dam has never augmented the work of Akosombo Dam. But at least we know one thing for sure, that the independent power producers came to the rescue. We set up the energy sector levy so that we could build up a fund to take care of these payments. They capped that levy, spent all the money. PDS, we lost $160 million of the Millennium Compact. It was coming to help what? Power distribution in Ghana. You see, there are many sins of this government. Palugu Dam, they told us a very barefaced lie. The single largest investment. How did that one fare? My sister, Akufo-Addo should not really be telling us anything about governance. Look at our governance institutions. Why do you think that suddenly everybody is so partisan? I had a debate on one of your platforms with somebody from VRA, and I asked him whether he was a member of parliament, whether he was elected for the job that he's serving on at VRA, whether he knows how Volta River Authority was even established. They expended $11.8 million on preparatory work for Palugu, and there's nothing to show. We want credibility. We want trustworthiness. We want leaders who will walk their talk. We want individuals who love Ghana.
Do you appreciate the economic difficulties you're about to inherit?
Better than anybody. I have traveled with Mr. Mohammed 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. I've seen the level of poverty. I've seen the level of degradation of our forests. I've seen the level of deterioration of our road network and infrastructure. I've seen the abandoned projects. They told you that the 126 E-blocks were in bushes. Go to the Upper East region to Bongo. The Agenda 111 hospital is 5 minutes away from an E-block. They carried out a grand deception. We were told that they were not coming to look for our money. Where's the money? I hope that Ken Ofori-Atta is preparing to account for all the transaction fees and whether or not those fees were justified. We do have a lot of problems. $58 million on the National Cathedral. There are many lawsuits for people who lost properties. Even the Office of the Chief Justice is suing government. And they're leaving now and leaving all these debts behind. We still have the pensioners, bondholders, their monies that were never paid or repaid. How do we pay all of those things? We actually appreciate the enormity of the day. And in the next few days, Mr. Mohammed will be making some very profound announcements as he starts the preparation to kickstart his
The overwhelming numbers in the just ended election is an indication of high expectations. Should Ghanaians lower their expectations?
You know, the enormity of the day is actually upon our shoulders. And I feel it in all humility. And you know, I'm always reminded that this is actually a legacy opportunity for John Mahama to live and make a mark. That his name will be etched in the sands of time will actually be determined by how he runs Ghana over the next few years. I am still hopeful. I am inspired. And I'm looking forward to the requisite impact. Our young people deserve better. Our middle-aged people deserve better. Our older people deserve better. I think the entirety of our society deserves better. So if Mr. Mohammed does one thing, that is even to give us what? A stable economy, to improve upon our industries so that we can create jobs. If he finds the $10 billion to invest in the big push agenda, at least the private sector will breathe again. I think these things will help. Now we have majority in Parliament, a clear majority, well over the 2/3 required. The constitutional amendment review process should be revisited immediately. People are very interested in that. You know, we must keep...
What in particular are you looking to review in the Constitution or amend in the Constitution?
Don't forget that wasn't our decision. Ghanaians actually told us what they wanted. And historically, we now know that Ghanaians know what they want.
True.
They want to.
You mentioned Ghanaians are very discerning now.
Absolutely. They want to put a feather on the powers of the executive. They want clear delineations of the separation of powers. They want a stronger parliamentary system. Because you see, you can tell that one of the best cameras of our democracy is the House of Parliament. And so now that we have this very clear, phenomenal, and outstanding lead, I believe that it must count. There are many taxes, nuisance taxes, that we also spoke about. The COVID levy, which we ought not to be paying. The e-levy, the betting tax, the emissions levy. These are matters that need instant attention. And so with the numbers we have in Parliament, why not? Foreign direct investments at an all-time low. Little wonder then that we have challenges with jobs and job creation. There is a renewed hope, and I know that many investors will return. They all left Accra, left Ghana, and they are moving to Ivory Coast. They're moving to Togo. What is the reason? We need to be more efficient. We need to be more conscious of creating enabling environments.
Right.
We need a stable currency so that businesses can thrive. We need certainty. We need to work to fight corruption. And many people greeted our message of the Operation Recover All Looted Assets and Monies. And I would have hope that in the next few days really, or the next few weeks, the coming days, we must start putting things in place to start these investigations. We mean business, my sister. And time no day.
Absolutely, time no day. Now, President Mohammed talks about capping his ministers to 60. That's such an enormous task. Will the new sheriff vary his promise?
No, let me tell you something. There are many agencies, many ministries that we created that do absolutely nothing. And all of us now know that they've contributed nothing even to our governance. I mean, look around you. They told us they had constructed 12,000 kilometers of roads. Where are those roads? We haven't seen them. They don't even exist, really. Go to the Western region, and I'm happy that they've elected duly to vote them out. Look, very close to where that statue of President Akufo-Addo sits, they've destroyed, completely stripped all the rules around there. The grand deception agenda was grander than we imagined. From Takrady all the way. That's what the Western region is. The Western region is home to big investments, oil and gas, cocoa, rubber, name it. Go there and see.
Oil palm,
everything. What have they benefited? When you look at the Statistical Service report, the Western region has gotten poorer by 20% over the last 8 years. And this is the story. This is the summary. That only a few people have gotten rich and fat on our proceeds. And nobody was held accountable. None. And never did they take responsibility. And I'm hoping that when Mr. Akufo-Addo finally hands over, he will deem it fit to express regret about some of the things that he really could have dealt with, but didn't. I think it was a missed opportunity.
You talked about the various taxes, e-levy, emissions levy, and all the COVID tax and all the other taxes. President Mohammed has said that in his 120-day social contract, he will abolish all these taxes. How soon should he expect it?
Well, now we have majority in Parliament, a clear lead. I believe that the minute Parliament reconvenes, we have a lot of formalities over the next few months, right up to January 7th and beyond. I'm hoping that the minute the 9th Parliament is set up and sworn into office, we mean business, my sister. I've told you. We must make Ghana governable again. We must make Ghana great.
And you're not going on a honeymoon?
Who needs a honeymoon when there's work to be done? And Mr. Mohammed knows that. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of heavy lifting. Look, in the next few months, people must at least see that their assetna is improving. People must see that the hope that they've reposed in us is worth their time. People must realize that the inspiration that they've given all of us is for us to do better. And in all humility, we appreciate the exigency of the day. You know, Ghana is even in an IMF program.
Yes.
So there's a lot of restrictions. But in all of that, if we can cut back on wastage, on office of government machinery alone, the size of government, the number of ministries and ministers who do absolutely nothing, the number of CEOs and deputy CEOs who feed fat on the back of their Greek sector.
Is this not job for the boys?
Well, job for the boys means what? And who has checked on the deliverables of the job or the boys? On the implementers, what have they asked the boys to deliver? What exactly have they offered, short of taking those monies to go and seek seats, to seek refuge, so they can avoid the accountability that will by all means come? My sister, make no mistake. This is a government that has totally destroyed governance. They inherited a B- economy and leaving it at junk status. They told you and swore off the IMF. Swore borrowing until they were literally locked out of the markets. Where is the social contract that they signed with us? What they offered versus what they delivered. It is a reflection of their failures that summed up the abysmal performance of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. And please, entreat him to show humility for his failings, for the fact that he campaigned for months with no clear message. Digitalization is a process. It's not an event. It's not a daytime event or one-off policy. And we set the tone with the e-governance project. And look at the court system that we have now. That was phenomenal. That was revolutionary. The automation of the port infrastructure started years before he even became vice president. Don't let them change the narrative. I want to express our deep and sincere appreciation to the great Lord for how far he has brought us. Thanking God for adding on all of Akufo-Addo's successes to John Mahama and more. This is what we have to celebrate today.
You said that time no day. Does President Mahama have his list of appointees ready?
Oh, well, he's told us the next 2 weeks, yes, certainly. And he's very clear in his mind about that. And we want people who are going to work and work for the good people of Ghana. We want to deliver an efficient government. And we want to see results immediately. And of course, he's told us, if you are not results-oriented, please, don't take up any appointments with me. Ghanaians have no time. They have no patience. They will not be waiting for you or pampering you. They expect you to deliver on your mandate.
We've also had reports of some appointees of Nana Addo being stopped at the airport from leaving. You're a lawyer. You understand the law. Is it right to stop people from leaving Ghana?
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Why do they even want to leave? Where are they going to? It wasn't so bad enough a few days ago, a few weeks ago. What has changed? It's not a coup d'etat.
Some people have medical appointments.
Well, they should prove it. I believe that the immigration officers have a discretion. They have a certain latitude. If they are escaping, these days you see, Interpol and the conventions that we have established the fact that there's very little places for you to hide. Whether you're hiding money, you're hiding yourself, you try to leave the system. In any case, we also know that dual citizens also have still some issues that are standing. So if that is the escape route, know that you will still be found out. It is very easy to find out people, to smoke them out. It's not difficult at all.
Is it allowed for ministers to travel during transition periods?
Well, I would expect that they will not. That President Akufo-Addo will tell them to stay until we've handed over. I mean, I expect that, except you have an emergency. But of course, it's the president who allowed his gender minister to be AWOL for months on end and did nothing about it. Who allowed his finance minister to stay in office way beyond his welcome and destroy our finances until he could no longer even, face the criticism. So look, he has not been able to control his pack. That has been one of his biggest failings. That he simply could not instill discipline. That he defended everything they did, and so why not? Now that he actually has no power, I am sure that it will be very difficult for him to control them. But look, be that as it may, they will be smoked out. There is no escaping accountability. They must account for their stewardship. They've been in office for 8 years. They never stopped boasting about the fact that they had a mandate to run Ghana. They told us about Ghana beyond aid and hid behind it to steal all our money. They told us about working very hard to put their lives on the line for Ghana. The only people who benefited is Akufo-Addo and his family and friends, nobody else.
You touched on gender minister. let's talk the gender card, right? I look at the transition team and I see just one woman. President Mahama, in his speech at his residence, said Professor Nana Jane GHOne has opened the door for all women. Yet I see just one woman in the transition team. Has the door closed?
Well, the door will remain very wide open. In the past, maybe we probably will not even have one. And certainly there are many subcommittees. Don't forget that this is the apex body. Then you have many subcommittees on governance, on assets and all of that. So certainly there will still be more names coming up over the next few days. And you know, there's also a certain, delineation in the act. So you look at it from the terms of the former chief of staff, who of necessity has to be there because he has a history of what was in government when we left. So there's also a reason why this is the list we have. And then there's also a strong interest in governance. So you see Professor Ahoy, and then the secretary is also another expert in local governance. So this is actually a certain microcosm of the numbers that we're going to have. And indeed, we're actually working on a list of subcommittees. I think that there are many other young and middle-level women who will be serving on these committees. And don't forget, there's room for many of our volunteers who will continue to work and in and around the support and the work. Don't forget that they will need a secretariat also. And so there are many people.
Are you looking at meeting the 30% threshold in President Mahama's administration?
I hope you will do more even.
Okay.
I hope you will do more even. And please, sisters, when they offer you the jobs, do well to accept. Please come on board. And I think that, look, I told someone recently, when I came onto this job, there was no template. How many years later? I believe
Don't you think the unnecessary bastardization of women deters us from accepting roles in governance? I
have survived it. You can too. Many women ahead of us have survived it. Nana Jane must have gone through a lot on the University of Cape Coast campus. She's lived to tell her story. All the women we know, all the women we admire, all the women walking the length and breadth of Ghana, I'm sure if they shared their stories with you, you will probably never leave your house. Somebody has to stand up for us all. And I believe that that is even more important. And let me encourage every woman, if you are offered an appointment, please take it and do your very best. Your very best. I mean, how are you going to tell me not to speak out? How are you going to sit on my happiness? I've come under a barrage of attacks for criticizing the Honorable Afenyo Markins when he took Nana Jane on, and for celebrating the fact that the Central Region has shown him the red card, that he will return to Parliament with an absolute no caucus. Now, I don't know, how would we describe his leadership in Parliament? You understand? But the attacks will come. The knocks will come hard. Even from some of the men that you expect better from.
Absolutely.
It will come. In your day job, you get it.
If I told you my story,
if I were to share my story, I'm sure people will be shocked.
Yes.
Every day you get undermined. There's so much treachery. But I'll say one thing. That GHOne Mahama, oh my goodness, that guy is something else. He has continued to inspire me, to encourage me, to motivate me. Don't forget, I also came under attacks for even being his family member.
True.
Albeit an extended family member. Well qualified. A member of the NDC, no less. And yet I got a lot of it. In and out. So look, we all have very harrowing tales. But there are also those men who support us, who encourage us. And we must not lose sight of the hope that they also have in us. Our sons, our daughters, our husbands, our colleagues at work. And I am very lucky. My colleagues have been amazing, so supportive. There are times when I've woken up and wanted to resign. They have actually been my support base. And so make no mistake, it will come. It won't be easy, but you will have support. Don't forget that sometimes even as women attack one another, they're very unforgiving, very judgmental of each other. You understand? So make no mistake, a woman like Nana should be celebrated any day. Jale, to be on that campus all those years, Ain't no joke.
No.
To come into politics as education minister is not a joke. To defend GHOne Mahama all these years is not a joke.
And now history is being kind to her as a first female vice president.
Absolutely. And you remember when Mr. Mahama was leaving office, he told us that because he was so well-intentioned, he was hopeful that posterity would be the judge. But Ghanaians have given him all of that and more. I salute him today for his leadership. I celebrate him for standing tall. I celebrate him for maintaining Nana Jino Pokwajima. For Nana's stoicism. The criticism came long and hard and painful to listen to and to watch. And from quarters that you would expect better from. She stood her ground. And she stood to be counted. And hopefully, when the history of our days have been counted one day and written, she will be etched in gold. And GHOne Mahama, more or less, largely for his progressive thoughts.
Okay.
I mean, Nana alone represents about 50% of the constituency. I think that should be something that we should celebrate.
We should celebrate enough of that. Let's come back to the transition team again. Prof. Senin was in your seat a while ago before you came in, and he's raised concerns about no security person in the transition team, and that is a cause for worry.
No security person?
Yes, in the transition team.
I've told you, we have many subcommittees. You know, sometimes I think that people want to put Sansa in our gari. We no go agree.
So you think,
with all due respect to
but these are aspects raising concerns, especially with the current situation we have on our hands.
I say we no go agree.
You no go agree, yeah. Okay.
I know there are many subcommittees. There are people of varied expertise and experience, and I know that there are many people with experience in security, and all sorts of them working in our corridors. So I know what I'm talking about.
Let's head back to Parliament. You have absolute majority. Many people say you will abuse it. Should these people have cause to worry?
We are there to work for the good people of Ghana. Those who elected us into office and enforced the whole numbers in Parliament actually completely erode the story that you read out to me when I arrived here. You understand? It actually puts paid to that debate. In the parliamentary elections, in many of those constituencies, we also won in the presidential race as well. And you can't tell me that only NDC members were out there to elect all those members of parliament, you understand? Even when they realized the enormity of the debacle, they tried very hard to go out there using security, using their thugs to try and overturn some of the results. In fact, in some places even, the coalition officers were held to ransom. Some officers of this EC themselves came under serious attacks. Look, this is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice in it. We will use our numbers to work in the interest of the good people of Ghana. Do you remember how difficult it was to have things passed in Parliament in our day in office? This is what Ghanaians have established. They saw the hung Parliament. People behaving like spoiled children, acting very immaturely. Imagine we didn't have an experienced hand like the Right Honourable Alban Sumana Bagbin. If something was good under Michael Kwe, why was it wrong under Sumana Bagbin? Why? Their inconsistencies is also why they've lost. I'm sure even the electorate know. Their constituencies probably figured that their members of parliament were completely inconsistent. And I love something that one of their MPs said, that they need to do a surgical analysis of why they lost. They need to eventually take responsibility for why they lost. Their party people must demand answers from them for why they promised to fight corruption and have performed abysmally on corruption, on all the key facets of corruption. Akufo-Addo failed to deliver. And these are the things we are talking about. And this is why they've lost. We told you that their performance was abysmal. Mr. Mahama, in the course of the pandemic, told us that the economy was already at the ICU. Remember? Because at the time, our public debt was almost 500 billion. yet they disagreed with us. A man who spent all his time in a position delivering economic lectures no longer speaks about the economy. Not once did he talk about the solutions for fighting corruption. Not once. Don't let any discredited pollster give you misleading headlines. They are as fake as they are procured. It's all propaganda. We are going to run our affairs on the side of truth, sincerity, and honesty. It's the thing about Mr. Mahama. When you hear him, you know this is an honest man. When you see him, you know this is a genuine man. He cares about Ghana. He will deliver for the good people of Ghana.
What will a Mahama chapter 2 look like? How different will it be other than his chapter 1?
More efficient, fairer. At least we don't have Doomsaw anymore. And of course, with a resounding win, nobody is going to the Supreme Court or any court for that matter. So we will be focused. There are no distractions. And he will have the very best team to support him in that endeavor. I have no doubt in my mind. And when I look in the crucible, by the time Mr. Mahama investigates all of these acts of unbridled greed and corruption, many advocates will come to the table. Many of our CSOs knew that there was a lot wrong with our government. I know that they will stand in to support us to deliver. I know that the good people of Ghana will stand in to support us to deliver. I know that God himself, in his own wisdom, will continue to guide us so that Mr. Mahama will leave an unparalleled legacy. What Akufo-Addo and the MPP tried to deny is what Ghanaians have re-established, as established by the good Lord. I know he will deliver on a better economy because John Mahama is a modest man. I know he will deliver on better social services because he had started and left behind enormous infrastructure developments. Google him today. You will be told that this is a leader who tried to build on Ghana's infrastructure. It is how he got the name Nation Builder. They told you that we didn't eat roads, that we were not going to eat those buildings. What did they do? Let's praise Akufo-Addo for commissioning 88 projects in one day. Really? I'm delighted that Ghanaians have put paid to the lies, to the propaganda, that Ghanaians have exposed them and they've fallen on their own sword of Damocles. Mr. Mahama is a credible leader, investigated by his own successor, who should have known better. What are the sins of Akufo-Addo and Bawumia? Many sins, too many to count. And in the coming days, we will actually be speaking largely to many of these allegations. Are Akufo-Addo's brothers not working with him? Are his daughters not in government? Are they not getting sole source contracts and agreements and promoting same? So why should President Mahama's brother not run a successful business? And this business was there long before now.
Sure.
It has survived 8 years of Akufo-Addo. My sister, I think that we should be fair. But this joy is something that we will not allow anybody to take away from us. And certainly not Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
How soon should we expect the scrap of the ex-gratia? Is there a document in the offing?
Oh, my sister, he's told you very clearly that his appointees will not be exigible to ex-gratia. And Parliament will be doing the next set of it. I don't know if we're going to go all the way back to start all over with the constitution review process. We have the government white paper. So the job is almost done. Note that there was a history to this. That the Article 71 list was exactly what it was before 92. Today, we have a large number. I hope that all the stakeholders will agree that this is the time to move away from this. That those monies alone could actually be invested even in poverty alleviation measures. We need to do that. We need careful reflection, sober reflection. Things must change. And I believe that the buck starts with the new government.
I agree. Now, in the run-up to the elections, a number of your colleagues in the NDC registered their mistrust in the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, GHOne Adwocacy. In her declaration, the final thing she said was, it is finished. Is it finished for her? Will the NDC remove GHOne Adwocacy?
Well, you see, let me say something that I wanted to say. That in all the conversations we've had so far, I mean, We talked about the partisan nature of that commission. We spoke largely about the biases displayed by Madame Jean Mensa herself, her prejudices and all of that. I would have thought that she would resign after the declaration. So if it is finished, they say Agbe now. Maybe it is Agbe now for her. I don't know.
Okay.
You understand? But genuinely, considering the feelings of that electoral commission as it's currently composed, what do you expect? But you see, from a very professional perspective, and if we genuinely want to move forward and close this chapter and begin a new chapter of a clearly very independent EC as the Constitution intended, let's put out what we want. Let's advertise. Let's vet them. Let's ask Parliament to do that for us.
Okay.
You understand? So we clean out the partisan outlook of the EC. Dr. Piahini,
So
Dr.
the president should not appoint
Dr.
EC chairs again?
Is
that what President Mohammed will look out for?
Let me ask you, is it not time to do things differently?
True. I agree.
How many letters does the president want to sign, really? Well, I'm not president. You understand?
Is this something you're going to suggest to him? You are his aide.
Oh, we have all these conversations. And, I always say to people that the beauty of Mohammed is that he loves to listen to ideas. It is why he has so many of us young, bright people around him. We have great debates, great conversations. And so these are all conversations that we will be having. But note that we already have a government white paper. And I know that all these things are part of that process. So why not? But they work, they be.
You've also registered your mistrust in the Chief Justice. Will the Mahama administration remove the CJ grounds, if there are grounds to?
You see, I am not President Mahama.
You are his aide. So you obviously are privy.
I haven't asked for his permission. But what I know is that currently, perceptions from the general public in the work of the judiciary, right? One of the arms of government is at an all-time low. So let me ask you, what is the Chief Justice supposed to do under the circumstances? Self-introspection, reflection. Maybe now that there's change everywhere, who knows? But I hope that we know that our democracy is only as good as our democratic institutions or the strength of same. And let's be honest, when we send women to do a job, they should try as much as possible to do a great job. Nothing less.
Are you looking forward to renaming the seat of governance back to Flagstaff House?
You see, these are not my decisions to make, and I have not asked my boss. I haven't even thought about it. So this one, allow me to take the Fifth Amendment on this one.
You will not speak to it?
I have no response to this one.
Okay.
Not. And you see, my sister, there are very heavy issues. There are priorities. There are big issues that need attention. The economy is in tatters. Okay?
What will be President Mohammed's approach to Galamsey?
He's told us already. And in the next few months, I'm sure he'll be visiting all those sites. There's an airline that was passed allowing unscrupulously people to mine in our forest reserves. Evidenced by the late Sir John's will. Who does that? Who really does that? So you know where the work will be.
In the review of the free SHS, will you look at allowing people who are able to pay for the awards? Or it will be a blanket free for all?
Free SHS has come to stay. And I think that the whole nomenclature about this pre-qualification or prefix of free is even not necessary. It's senior high school. We have primary school, senior high school, tertiary education, and even advanced education. I think that we need a stronger educational system across board. I think that we need reforms across board. I think we need to strengthen the skill set of the people we are educating. And I know that there are many people better placed to deal with these matters than I am. I know we need better infrastructure to to absorb the numbers that we have. We need quality of education to be improved. We need better teachers to teach our children. We need better facilities. Feeding is a reason. Look, for those of us from northern Ghana, feeding was one of the reasons why kids used to go to school.
True.
If you've never been poor before, check.
You never understand.
You understand? So food is a big part of secondary education. And so these are the things that we must, of necessity, look at. Not to serve expired food to our children, already underprivileged, already disadvantaged, already lacking in some very key basic nutritional capacities. You know, so these are the things you will never hear again. I'm delighted that Ghanaians have actually shown them the exit. And so we will do things better. You understand? Beyond the nomenclature, beyond the rhetoric, beyond the highfalutin billboards, beyond the wasting of public resources on advertising things that need no advertisement. We must focus on using these monies for reparation, to improve, to ensure that kids get a better part of the education being satisfactorily delivered on all levels. Head teachers have complained. You heard about Charles. I wish that they had done more to defend the kids. But I know when you do, they sack you. When you do, they stifle you. When you do, they suspend you. You suffer for even criticizing them. I'm happy, and Ghanaians have said it. We have all attained new freedoms. But I hope that we'll be measured even in the space of this new freedom. But I know one thing for sure, that GHOne Mahama will deliver on a better educational system for the good people of Ghana.
How important is your oral promise to the fight against corruption?
Oh, fantastic. Very, very important. How are we going to survive? How are we going to run government? If we allow these huge sums of money to go to waste, to individual pockets, how did this Leader investigation go? Where did it end? But for someone like Martin Pebu, who has kept this story, this advocacy going, how are we going to do that? Look, my sister, Ghanaians are very serious about transparency and accountability. That is the preamble to our 1992 Constitution. At the bottom of all the legislations we have is better governance, anti-corruption measures. Corruption makes us also poorer. It leaves our poor even poorer. Corruption is the reason why even our educational system is where it is. We must fight corruption and fight it to win. And it starts with transparency. It starts with accountability. And we must take that very seriously. Everybody is waiting for us to start Operation Recover All Looted Assets and Properties.
In President Mahama's 120-day social contract, item 13, says, institute inquiries and or forensic audits into the following matters of public interest. The first thing is the collapse of indigenous Ghanaian banks and financial institutions. We've heard him in time past talk about how unfair it was. Is President Mahama looking at giving back the licenses of these collapsed banks?
You know that even before that bank rationalization, we left a blueprint. There were going to be far-reaching reforms before we left office.
Sure.
I'm sure we'll revisit that subject. Only those who are well qualified, only those who are willing to follow the rules and regulations, only those who are willing to hold the fiduciary responsibilities as the Bank of Ghana Act enjoins them to do, will actually be allowed to operate. It is not going to be a carte blanche or literally a blank check. You understand? But certainly a lot of our indigenous banks collapsed under those circumstances. Note that there was a bank that was actually doing very, very well, but their license was revoked for no reason. And there was no due process, if you remember. In the aftermath, there were some prosecutions, but not all of them. But how about the ones that were not prosecuted? Why were the licenses not given back? The number of jobs that were lost. In some cases, you know that couples were both bank workers and both lost their jobs. And what efforts were made even to reassign them to other jobs? Nothing was done.
President Mahama, after 2016, mentioned that he stayed in Ghana to subject himself to probity and accountability. After the loss of the NPP, even after the transition period, do you expect that the flag bearer of the NPP, the outgoing president, and other appointees who will stay in Ghana to be subjected to probity and accountability?
Well, I mean, you should be asking them. I think that they have been our trustees now, custodians of everything in Ghana for the last 8 years. If they don't owe anybody, they owe it to themselves. And I keep telling you that I hope that they can stand as tall as Mr. Mahama has when the spotlight is actually shown on them.
Let's talk about Parliament and the losses. Which one shocked you the most?
You know, I don't think that any of them really shocked me.
Really?
No.
The big names, none of them?
I was expecting it. It was a tsunami. And you see, when the headwinds are blowing, so they're blowing against you, you can't withstand the weight of it. And all of them have been affected by a proper rationalization, a proper repudiation of everything that Akufo-Addo and Bawumia actually represented. You see, they knew they were losing. They just didn't realize the enormity of what was going to come. But look, I've visited every constituency. Their arrogance, the impunity, the disrespect, it was just too much.
Was it an evidence of posterity judging in your going around the various constituencies? You say you've gone around all the constituencies.
Look, when you were watching, you were following, you had people from your media house going with us. They heard, they saw. Beyond what was available was also the emotional pain, the psychological suffering, beyond the hardship. And the fact that you suddenly had leaders who simply didn't care. Otherwise, why would Bawumia run a whole campaign of lies and be in a very poor environment and forget to talk about poverty or measures to alleviate poverty, and yet expecting the same poor person to go on an hungry stomach and elect you into office? Why would you do that? Or speak to very poor communities and tell them that people, talk about religion, talk about tribe, and all these unnecessary things that really don't put food on the table. I think that, it was bound to happen. And most of their MPs, some of the decent ones, have suffered because of their very bad leaders. A few of them who were my friends were pretty decent members of Parliament. But you see, the truth of our life is that when you have bad leaders, it's a reflection on all of you. We can never say that about John Mahama. Look at it right from the days of Professor Mills, right from the days of Jerry Rawlings till date. When has the NDC not had good numbers in Parliament? Even at the time when they won, and won convincingly, we held sway right through till 2020. And today, Ghanaians have given all of the numbers to us for good reason, for better accountability, for more transparency. It means that they want to give more power to Parliament. It's a reflection of what Ghanaians expect, that we will work in their interests and work for them. So if you come in as a president, you come in as vice president, and you carry this grand deception of deceit and lies and propaganda, spend all your time focusing on your opponent, you will not hand over to a one-term president. You will not hand over to a man that you beat, forgetting that the man beat you too. You understand? A very low kind of, conversation that is totally unnecessary. God had to humble President Akufo-Addo, and God had to humble Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and by extension, Madam Samira. Also, Auntie Rebecca, I will not say, because that's why she's just like my mother, Auntie Lodina. She minds her business. And I think that we need to see more of our spouses, of our leaders, exhibit this motherly outlook, be support systems for all of us, carry themselves in the way that they are above reproach, even though they subjected Auntie Lodina to a lot of criticism, even by Akufo-Addo himself, that Auntie Lodina was actually awarding contracts. A barefaced lie that was never proven until date. Nobody can prove that anyway.
Do first ladies play any role in governance?
Well, if you ask me,
should we review that?
If you ask me, if, for example, that I, a working woman, were first lady of Ghana, I'll continue working in my day job.
Okay.
Every now and then there might be a need for me to come out and support my spouse. Why not? On some occasion to accompany the spouse somewhere. Why not? On some occasion to go out there and undertake some social responsibilities because the main spouses are not available. But the beauty of it is that now we have a second woman, vice president.
Would you take up a peculiar role in government? Or you still want to serve your boss?
You know, as my boss, it doesn't matter where I go to. I will always serve him. You understand? Always. I think that GHOne Mahama is a great man, a great coach. I'm better now because of him. You know, I used to be very sensitive. I mean, I'd cry like all the time. You know, there are times when I walk in and say, oh, Pachibi, this is nothing. You know, so I think that for that alone, I'm eternally grateful to him. And I thank God that I stayed the course. I mean, can you imagine not being part of this history? How would you feel? You would have felt really bad.
Are you then going to be one of the people, since you talk about history, that we want history to be kind to? Is this something that you're looking forward to? Do you want to be Ghana's first female president?
Hey, you this girl. Don't come and look for Don't bring me trouble. I am always just of service, you know.
That's a service to the nation.
I have my mantra. Me, Adishitu. If you ask me to come here every morning, serve tea and coffee, I'll serve it so well that every morning you invite me to come and do the same. That is me.
Don't you think you need that on a grand scale?
I am doing that exactly where I want to do it. And I'm very comfortable where I'm seated. Yes, I've enjoyed serving John Dramani Mahama. Every second of it, every minute of it, no matter the thorns, no matter what has happened or not happened, he has always been my biggest inspiration. And I'm honored that today I've had the privilege of being a part of this historic, outstanding lead in an election that everybody actually sat on the fence and watched us battle it out. I'm delighted that God in his own wisdom has indeed made a table in the midst of GHOne Mahama's enemies and his worst critics that we live to see this day. You know, it's a very humbling moment. Very, very humbling. And I get very emotional when I look back on the last 8 years. It's been tough, very difficult. I mean, 2017 was so hard. Everybody was only out there to accuse Mr. Mahama of one thing or the other. The criticism was swift. So swift and very painful sometimes to watch. God had to find a way to lift his son. And I think that God has done it in a very beautiful way. You see, in his own time,
he makes all things beautiful.
Thank you.
While at it, we here in the media will continue to be critical of government.
I must be grateful to the media, especially those who followed us to the 16 regions of Ghana. Their sacrifices, their dedication, very difficult terrain sometimes, even accommodation sometimes, food.
And I must salute my colleague.
Yes. And those guys did a great job, both men and women. And I'm thankful to God that together we can move this country forward. All of us on Team Mahama are eternally grateful for their sacrifice.
Thank you very much for coming. That's so Joyce Bawa. He's the aide to President-elect GHOne Dramani Mahama. Hard Talk returns. So Hard Talk ends. GHOne returns after this break. Stay tuned in. You're welcome back to the show. This is still Jay today here on GHOne TV. Let's head to the church, shall we? And we've been we've been blessed this morning by Apostle Dominic Osei and Prophetess Leslie Osei from the Kingdom Full Tabernacle International Ministry. They have a revival culture. Well, just after the elections, Ghana has been revived, isn't it? Yes. So let's go to the church for full revival. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Let's talk about your church and what you stand for. Since you started ministry, how has it been? How challenging? Has it been a smooth ride, difficult ride for you?
Initially, it was smooth for us until this last year. We actually faced a big challenge. The enemy really came after us, and I believe that was a promise God told us, that within the 7th year, the enemy will try to test if this is from the Lord or not. So but we just passed the test because we are still here. So
what test was this? How grandiose was it?
It was more of accusations. People are now throwing stones at us, and for inside the church we were fine. Everything was fine, but people outside now see that, okay, God is blessing these people. Let's find a way to bring them down. So it's more what people are saying outside, on social media, those kind of attacks. That's what we went through. But by God's grace, we stayed together, and we are still here by His grace. The church is still moving forward, and we believe that we are past the test. Yes.
For you, prophetess, as a woman and a mother, how did this test come to you? How did it affect your motherhood, your sanity?
Yes. So, what does the church stand for? So it's Kingdom Full Tabernacle, and the tagline God gave us in prayer was manifesting the kingdom of God here on earth. Great. And so for the past 8 years, that's exactly what we've been doing. Whatever is done in heaven, we're going to mimic it here on earth. And I think it's been a challenge for a lot of people to swallow a man and a woman doing it together. The rhetoric in America and even here in Ghana is it's only a man that does ministry, and if a woman is doing it, she's not married, she's not respectful. And so to see both of us doing it, and I'm fully submitted because he makes it easy to submit, and he leads properly, and he doesn't suppress me. In fact, he pushes me to go. I think that was a shocker for a lot of people. And I remember even the past 8 years, something as simple as flyers. You would not see a pastor's wife on a flyer, much less them being a prophet of God. And so I think that already had a lot of people stirred, religious people, because we were fought inside the church. And so as far as me even being a first lady and then also pastoring the church with my husband, it was a lot of trusted voices that the enemy used, people that have been in our house, people that we've fed, people that we've done so much good for. It's almost as if the enemy just threw something on their eyes, because when you ask them, and people have asked them, like, what exactly have they did? Did he cheat? No. Did they scam you? No. Did they beat you up? No. So what exactly is it? And no one can pinpoint it. But again, coming up in ministry, I understood that there was a shaking every so often, and it's good for you as the believer and also for the ministry, just to make sure you understand that it's God's work and it's not your work. And so as far as me as a mom, I think that just as a woman, it made me even stronger. I didn't even know what I was made of. Everyone is scared to be talked about. Everyone doesn't want an accusation, especially when it's a false one. And so it caused me to really just, it's me and Jesus, my husband and I, and I'm not going to change my motherly nature. I'm still going to love the church members. I'm still going to, celebrate them. Those who need housing, I'm still going to house them. I'm still going to feed them. The enemy wants to change your disposition when attacks come. And so the goal is always to put your feet down and say, no, God has made me a loving, kind person, and I'm going to stick to it. Okay.
At what point did you realize you had the gift of the prophetic?
I think at a very, very young age, and I always share this story in most of my sermons, how my mom, I would be fast asleep and I would have a dream that maybe $5 was in this corner here, and I wake up and I'll tell my mom, like, Mom, I just had a dream that there was $5 in the corner, and she'll be like, well, this closet I haven't opened it. She's like, this closet I haven't opened it for years, so how can $5 be there, and how would you know? And sure enough, when we cleaned it, it would be right there. And there will be certain times where I've had dreams, or I'll say something and it'll come to pass. Just yesterday, I woke up and I said, babe, I just had a dream about one of the church members. Something happened and I didn't even hear from this person. So later on in the day, I found out that she had fainted in the evening. And so while I was dreaming, she was fainting. So when I woke up, we prayed immediately for her, not even calling her to ask her anything. So God has been using me for a very long time. And I think my mom is also prophetic, so she understood how to curate a prophetic gift in me. She never shut it down.
How was the reception like for you as the head pastor, your wife as a prophet? Ministering in the same church, the Christian community, the church, your friends, your colleagues?
It was difficult in the beginning because I was serving in a different church before we started KFT, and it was my friends that I was working with, and now I get married and then I'm bringing my wife into the picture. There was kind of
you're apprehensive.
They were very apprehensive, and that was one of the reasons why the Lord told us to go and start our own. Because I felt like God wanted to start something new with us. For the first time, having your wife on the flyer with you, it wasn't something that we saw earlier. And so, but for some reason, I always felt like ministry is destiny. And destiny, you fulfill destiny with your spouse. So you don't take that spouse out when it comes to the ministry part, but everything else you feel like they should be part of. So when I'm married, I said, well, I'm going to fulfill destiny, and I need my helper to stand with me to fulfill the destiny, which is the ministry. So I always believe that. I don't know how I believe, but it's just something that I believe. And I've always pulled her along with me from the beginning, even before we started the church. So, and it has worked very well for us. And now other people are replicating what we started.
Let's talk about revival culture.
Yes.
How long have you been organizing? What's been the impact? And what is different this year?
Revival culture, we started, I believe, 2019 or so. And we went to London, first time, we organized the place, it was packed, people's lives were changed, and people were set on fire. I believe one of the things God has given to us is to set places on fire, set people's heart on fire. And it's something that has been happening within our church. When we host our marriage fast, we're able to stand on our feet and pray for 12 hours straight. So that is a revival, and that is a fire that we are taking all over different states, different nations. And last year, God opened the door for us to come to our homeland. And it's always good to come back home.
Absolutely.
We came home and we had a revival. People have been testifying. We came in and the testimonies were so many. And people are receiving miracle babies. People were healed. People were still caught up. The fear and the love of God came into people's heart again. Souls were saved. And so that's what revival culture has been, is to set people's heart on fire for God. And what God is doing in the U.S., we want to also bring it here in Ghana. So this year we came back and we want to do 2 days instead of 1 day, because last year we came, it was just 1 day event. And this year I want to give myself and my wife opportunity to both of us to be able to help to bless Ghana with our ministries.
When is revival culture happening?
Tomorrow.
Wow.
By God's grace, 5 p.m. at Physicians and Surgeons Center, and then Friday as well. It's at Physicians and Surgeons Center, and then he also has a men's chat the third day. So this year's 2 days, starting tomorrow.
What time does it start tomorrow?
5 p.m.
5 p.m. till you drop.
Till Jesus comes.
Please tell us about the men's chat.
The men's chat, I believe, is a great platform for men to be able to talk. Usually you hear more of women conferences all over the world, and women are being empowered. And there's no men's fellowship. Even churches are not doing men's fellowship anymore.
It's a woman's world now.
It's a woman's world now. So I believe that this is what God wanted the men to do, and he's using me to start a place where we can teach men how to be kingdom men and teach them the ways of the Lord. So it's a platform. This one will be where we're able to have people who are experienced, have gone through life, and we're able to share. And also, we give other people an opportunity to also share their stories. And then we learn from each other. So just one event this time. We want to be able to talk to the men, empower the men for life, for marriage, and also for fatherhood.
Okay. Yeah. It's been great having you.
And
we wish you all the best at the Revival Culture, and we pray that you make it an annual thing.
Yes.
That's Apostle Dominic Osei and Prophetess Leslie Osei of KFT, all the way from America, back home to bless Ghana. GHOne returns shortly.
cities. The farmer should be able to attend hospital if he falls sick. All these things, farmers, we don't get them. And there is a lot that the cocoa gives to the country. And when I sit backwards, I don't see why cocoa farmers should suffer. If you go to other countries like Liberia, Nigeria, as we speak, cocoa farmers are getting around 9,000 Ghana cedis, even as we speak today. Because of the elections and the issues around, most of our cocoa beans are going to Togo as we speak now with the intel we are having. Because people are not there to check, people are looking for different things. And as we speak now, if you go to Togo, people are buying cocoa 9,000 Ghana cedis, whilst cocoa farmers in Ghana are taking 3,001. So the motivation to keep these farmers in the cocoa sector is not there anymore. So most of the farmers are leaving, abandoning their farms.
Do you think there could be alternative pricing mechanisms that could better your lot?
Yes. Ghana, for the past 33 years, we've been doing forward sales. We usually sell our cocoa before even the cocoa bean is harvested, which is not the best. And the new mechanism we are looking for is we should practice spot market, physical market. This is the cocoa bean. This is the price at the international market. You sell the cocoa to the trader at the prevailing price. You take your money. We shouldn't be doing forward sales contracts which have not been helpful for the past 33 years. So as we speak, cocoa is $10,123. If we have our cocoa today, we should take the cocoa to the market, take this $10,124,000 and give the cocoa to them than selling the cocoa before entering the new season. If you do that, we will get most of the monies coming in. And if we are willing to pay around 70% of this gross FAB to the farmer, today the farmers would have been getting $7,000. And $7,000, we break it down to 64 kilograms per bag, it means farmers would have been getting around 6,900 to 7,000 Ghana cedis per 64 kilograms of cocoa bag. But we are not getting. Here we sit, we get 3,100. So I think this is what we are looking forward to seeing from the new government. At least 70% of gross FOB to farmers will be better for us.
Are you expecting the incoming government to increase the scholarship scheme that benefits cocoa farmers?
Yes, because it is mandated by law. If you read the PNDC law 81, which was amended in 84, it is clear that at every end of cocoa season, 10% of net profit from the cocoa proceeds should be invested into these areas. Refresher courses for cocoa farmers, payment of scholarship, and then even giving soft loan to cocoa farmers. But for so many years, we are not seeing this. Me, I'm a beneficiary of Cocoa Board Scholarship, and it's fortunate for me. But for about 6 to 7 years now, because of the free senior high school, this scholarship has been suspended. And for what I know, every year, they earmark some percentage of amount into the scholarship secretariat because there are people still working at the scholarship secretariat of Cocoa Board. So we are looking forward to seeing that if at the senior high school level it is free, then we should channel all these monies to the tertiary level where the cocoa farmer was after completing the senior high school, will gain this scholarship and enter into the tertiary level, and the scholarship should be able to support the works of the cocoa farmers at the tertiary level.
Do you have issues with a syndicated cocoa loan?
Yes, it has not been helpful. And
why?
As a country, we can't be taking loans to finance our cocoa sector. And in the world, Ghana is the only country in the world that produces cocoa and also takes syndicated loans to finance its cocoa sector. And you pay huge interest. Even the processes involved, it's not easy. So I think that this is the time that we have to sit as a country. We should take away, for me, the new government shouldn't think of even going to the international banks for syndicated loan. We should generate our own internal funds to finance the cocoa sector. If we do that, we save money as we speak. If you take your cocoa, and the companies are ready to pay you and take their cocoa beans, because today the cocoa is in shortage and the demand of the cocoa globally is very high. So to me, as a country, we shouldn't even dream of going into cocoa syndication again.
It's something we should scrap.
Yes, we should scrap it away from our system and develop a new system that will sustain the cocoa business. Either making sure that if either government raises money through local banks or on the proceeds that comes out of cocoa. We have stabilization fund in the cocoa sector. Haven't we saved enough to be buying our cocoa? Every year we earmark money to the stabilization fund. How much do we have? How much is in there? All these things, I think we have to put them into interrogations and then get solutions to them.
How does that affect cocoa products in the lives of consumers?
Yes, for we the producers, we don't see much impact because the cocoa finance itself, and whatever activity that is done in the cocoa sector, the proceeds that comes from cocoa are the things we use for. But in terms of consumers or people who wants to go into local processing, because of the tax, the high tax, Ghanaians or indigenous people are not able to go into this processing. But most of the cocoa monies, when you take the value chain from production to consumption, comes out of processing. So even as a country, if we produce 200,000 tons and decide to process them, we will get much profit than producing 1 million metric ton and we decide to sell it in the raw state. So the government should reduce the tax for Ghanaians to go into cocoa processing so that we can process much of the cocoa in Ghana so that Ghanaians can also consume them, because most of the cocoa products we see are imported. And it looks very funny. You produce cocoa and you import cocoa product to your country. So I think this country should prioritize, or this government should prioritize these areas to ensure, invest in the Ghanaian people to go into this cocoa processing.
Okay. I'm sure President Mahama and his colleagues are listening to you this morning. That's Isifri Saka. He is a cocoa farmer, President, Ghana Cooperative Cocoa Farmers Association. Let's do some celebrations now. Happy birthday to Madam Tishia. We pray for strength, good health, and many on your special day from Sammy and the entire Air Force Diamond Wings Band members. Happy birthday, Nidromo Akpobudo. We all call you. We say you are our pride, our joy, and our greatest blessing. Watching you grow has been the most beautiful journey of our life. May your day be filled with love, laughter, and all the things that make you happiest. Always believe in yourself because you're capable of incredible things. We love you more than words can say. Have an amazing birthday, and God richly bless you, Dromo. That's it for the show. My name is Lily Mohammed. Tomorrow morning we're back with another edition of GH Today. Do have a great day. I'll see you again at 11:30 a.m. Bye for now.